So next we move on to name selections. So name selections are a group of entities that we can collect together and refer to with a particular name. And this can be useful in a number of ways. We can use this group selection in order to be used for meshing, and also when we get to the solver and post-processing. So these are useful ways to group them and identify them with a user-definable string to be able to call them up for an operation. So simply all we need to do for that is we need to select those particular faces. In this case we can see all these green selected faces on the side of the car, and then right click and choose to create this name selection. We can see the option down here on the menu, name selection, which then allows us to provide a particular name for that name selection. And here it's called named cell 1, and it's made up of 3 faces. But we can go in and edit that to change the number of faces that make up that name selection and change the name if we need to. So once we've clicked on generate or hit F5, that will then appear at the bottom of the tree in a name selection branch of that tree. And name selections can be assigned to points, lines, surfaces or solids. It doesn't need to be just faces as shown in this example here. A good example of the reason behind name selections would be, for example, to create a boundary condition, or to make sure a boundary condition is available for the solver stage when we get to it. Or we could use it as far as meshing. For example, we could use this particularly defined name selection for prism growth. So we could then create a prism growth entity in the meshing panel, in the meshing tool, and say that this particular name selection, which is made up of 3 faces, will be used for a prism growth with particular parameters. So name selections, as I mentioned, groups entities for reference and for management, for calling up for later operations. We can use them as a geometry for feature creation. For example, we can create an extrude operation based on a name selection as a source. We can also define parameters as well for parametric studies based on the name selection. So that can be a useful source for parametric studies. And we can also assign names to boundaries for the simulation. So when we use boundary names, the user must enable to transfer the name selections from design modeler to another. But once we've allowed the options panel here to allow name selections to be transferred, this will allow those name selections to be easily transferred from one tool within Workbench to the next tool within Workbench. For example, from design modeler through to meshing, and then through to the solving stage. So here's some examples of the propagation of name selections. So here we can see we performed a merge operation on these faces, and if we select the propagation of selection of the name selection, if we select yes, it will propagate out to all of the merged faces. So it will start from the original face set and move to a single face set, so that the named selection is retained as far as the zone, the surfaces that it covers, or the faces that it covers on the body. Here we can see that it's not, so there's no name selection after the merge operation. If we perform a split operation here, we split this up by virtue of this slice section. If we opt to retain or opt for yes for the propagation of selection of the name selection, here we've got the split name selection. If we don't, one of the 2 faces takes on the name selection. At any time we can remove the name selection and manually append faces. For example, we could then go into the name selection manually and select this face to be appended to the name selection to revert to essentially end up with this for the name selection. We can do that, but this is just an automatic option tool to try and retain the name selections before subsequent operations are performed. And here we can see another example using copy. We have our original part with a name selection, and here we've propagated out to all of these surfaces the name selection. So all of these 6 faces have one name selection applied to them. And if we don't opt for the propagate selection, we have only the original body which takes on one of the faces with the name selection, and all the other bodies don't have any interaction with that particular name selection.